Hello, welcome, or welcome back for another B.L.T. Balance, Love, and Truth. I am the Ugly Duckling1111. In my last video, I told you that you were a perfect light and that you were perfectly imperfect just as you are. I said that you were a perfect light, you belong somewhere, doing something, but you can't remember what that is because you've been too distracted by the other lights. And you've traveled so far from your current, you can't remember what it looks like, feels like, or where it leads to. And just because you can't remember doesn't mean that you're any less perfect. The problem is not in the light. The problem is in the thinking, in the brain. When we are born, we are basically little blank computers. We grow and we learn by observing and applying. We get programmed to believe what others around us tell us to believe. I'm going to tell you something I tell my husband regularly on a bad day. I am miswired. When my brain was developing, it was basically being wired with programs with how to survive here on Earth. I learned by observing the people around me, copying their behaviors and their expressions. Most of the time, all I did was disagree with everyone and everything. That's for another time. A lot of my behaviors and character came from the people who didn't cope well with stressful situations, change, or loss. They didn't display a real true positive mindset. Everything was survival to them. And because this was my daily environment, when I didn't have a choice in leaving, I learned ways of surviving too. And I was never told to stay near my current or my path, with my purpose in mind. Like a lot of you, I didn't even know I had a purpose. I was just surviving. So when I journeyed the first half of my life, I didn't realize how far I was getting from my current. And I got very distracted and lost along the way. And if you're wondering why I keep using metaphors and calling it a current, it's best to go back and watch my last video, Distracted Lights. It might make a little more sense. But when I was done being distracted, I began asking questions to help me discover who I am, what I like, where I belong, how can I get there, just a whole lot of whys. And along the path of asking and answering those questions, I sometimes have some really bad days. When my husband comes home and finds me broken into pieces on the floor, he naturally asks me what's wrong. And my answer is always the same. I'm miswired. Sometimes I feel like I'm mentally and emotionally in a really good place. And then out of nowhere, everything in my head goes up in flames. Everything I've learned seems impossible to apply during these times. It's like knowing you need to eat healthier, to feel better, to look better. But having this knowledge doesn't mean it's easy to apply it. Just because I know something doesn't mean I know how to live it. So when I'm given advice during these hard days, I can't actually hear any of it. And even though I get better and better after every time this happens, it's still a struggle trying to apply these really helpful tools that I've learned to help turn things around. On those days, I've learned that it's best to just cry and comfort myself as best as I can, and do my best to just let it pass. There really is nothing I can do other than be patient for the next day to arrive. I didn't learn good coping mechanisms while my brain was being developed. I've had to learn them well after the wiring was completed. And the only thing I can do now is find these wires in my brain, things that I would like to change, ways of coping, ways of eating, ways of diffusing my anger, letting go, believing in my abilities, just tracing them back to where it was miswired in the first place. Which means having to go back in time and do my best to remember what triggered me. I literally grab a journal and start asking why. writing everything that comes to mind. For example, why did I get so explosive when my kids didn't want to eat my cooking? What is the real reason I lost my temper? And the first answer is always a surface level answer. Because I worked hard. Because they didn't appreciate my hard work. Okay, but why does this upset me that they didn't appreciate my hard work? Because I wasted my energy on them for no reason. Because I don't actually want to use my energy on people who don't appreciate my efforts. Because I don't feel appreciated. Because I don't think I'm good enough. Because people reflect my feelings back at me and I don't like it. Because now I know I need to change it. Because I want to appreciate myself and all of my efforts. Because I want to love myself more. And I don't allow myself to because I'm too focused on making other people happy rather than making myself happy, which is my fault. I'm sorry to myself. I will honor myself more and do my best to do the things that make me happy. This is an example of how I trace the wire back and rewire it the way I want it wired. Sometimes I trace a trauma back to my childhood. I did my best to be a good role model for my younger siblings, but the only attention I received was negative and applied only when I made mistakes. I work really hard at my job, but I only receive negative feedback from my boss. These feelings are there for a reason. They are always trying to tell us something. But we keep shoving them back down. And then we're left confused at why our kids not eating our dinner made us punch a hole in the wall. Or worse, spank the kids, verbally abuse them, and then ground them. Have you ever noticed the people raging all over the road? I'm sure you have. These feelings, these emotions of aggravation, agitation, impatience are all signs of being miswired. They are trying to get our attention to trace them back. We manage to make time for the things that need to get done, right? Like showers, work, family, grocery shopping, appointments. We also manage to make time for comforts, like our favorite TV shows, Facebook, YouTube, get-togethers. Well, this applies to the things that we need to get done. Our bodies and minds are begging us to give them some attention, just like a child whose parents are too distracted and busy for play. We are all miswired in one way or another. And a lot of my social and emotional behaviors are miswired, and it takes work and dedication to trace back these wires and reconnect them the way that I want them connected. Like exercise, it's hard, but it works. Allow yourself a cry day. Pull out a piece of paper and begin tracing your trigger. Where did it start? What do you want to do differently? What changes can you make to help stay calm, to make yourself feel better the next time this triggers you? Sometimes it's just a surface level trigger, and just feeling your feelings in a safe environment where you're alone to express them is all you need to heal and correct that wire. But pretending they're not there and ignoring them is only making it harder to find if you decide later in your life that you want to change it. Everything is a cycle. Everything comes back around again, either to test you to make sure that you've gained the wisdom or to give you another chance to heal it. So maybe it's later in life when your grandkids won't eat anything you make them, and it triggers that same emotion from years ago when your kids were small and they didn't want to eat your dinner. In my experience, sometimes you can't heal or rewire a reaction or an emotion too soon. Sometimes you need time, distance, and perspective. And you may be more capable at a later time. when you've had some distance from painful emotions. Only you know. But you are all you need to heal. You don't need to call in an electrician or a therapist to fix your wires. You are perfectly capable. When you decide the time is right to begin healing, it's helpful to keep in mind that expectations are the same as putting up a brick wall in front of yourself. Now you have to break down the wall to get to the original reason for healing. If you expect an outcome like being completely healed from this trauma because you took the time to feel your feelings, you will only create a new miswire. I have attempted to heal the same trauma, or what I thought was the same trauma, over and over. But I've learned that some wires can be really small and cross with other wires. I think I'm healing a certain trauma, and then in the middle of journaling and crying, I have a memory of something that I went through in my past that I had no idea was related to the feelings I'm experiencing. And I'm healing a completely different trauma than the one I started with. And now I'm overwhelmed with 2 or 3 different traumas, feeling the pain from each one all twisted together. And at a later time, on a better day, I can begin to see how they were related. We've all heard the phrase to expect the unexpected, which is to be prepared. Well, I tell my kids the opposite. Don't expect the unexpected. It's a completely different phrase from the first one, but in other words, the outcome of your situation cannot always be anticipated. We cannot always know the cause and effect of our actions. So it's best not to expect an outcome to an unexpected event. I've learned that it's my expectations that have caused the biggest problems in my life. I like to try to anticipate the outcome. I like to be 2 steps ahead if possible. And because of this, I've hurt myself unnecessarily and created negative outcomes, realizing later that if only I had just gone with the flow, I could have saved myself a lot of grief. So don't expect the unexpected in healing. Just go with the flow. Trust yourself. Trust that your body is more than capable and does what it needs to do without you having to be conscious of it. You are not consciously directing your liver to filter or telling your heart to pump, and you also don't need to tell your body how to heal. Your job is to take time, pay attention to your emotions, honor them by doing your best to express them in a healthy way. My journals have been my therapist. My inspiration has come from strong, determined people that I found here on YouTube, and my dedication has come from my own feelings of my own experiences. Start with focusing on the biggest problem first. What is the miswire in your mind that is causing the biggest problem in your life? That's your starting place. Ask the question, and the answer will come when you are at your quietest. I hope you liked this video. If you did, drop me a like. And if you don't want to miss my next one, then hit that subscribe button and maybe even that little bell. I hope to see you again for my next B.L.T, Balance, Love, and Truth. I am the Ugly Duckling1111.